Okay, so here we have a Toyota two-piece shaft for my customers at Precision Transmission. It's for one of their customers' Toyota pickups, and the ask was, could I take a look at this thing, because the truck had vibration problems compounding the clutch problems. I think that's fair to say. Kind of didn't know the one existed until they fixed the other situation, and it was obvious that the center bearing was torn out, and to me that is symptomatic of the thing's been shaking for a while. So I took this apart, and this is one that you've got to take stuff apart to get to the bearing, and this yoke here does not unbolt with U-bolts or bolt strap anymore, so you got to press out a U-joint. And this has had U-joint changed, but I took the center bearing, the bad center bearing off, and put that bearing on there and put it back in as it was, and it was virtually unrideable. I didn't even run it in the balancer. It shook so bad. So I called and talked to Dave, and he said, go ahead and chase it down. So I did blast this back section. On further inspection, there was, the weights were booked up underneath with layers of rust, especially at the rear axle end. That's not that unusual. I took all the factory weights off, and it was kind of a weight farm from the factory. It had an abundance of weight on it right from the factory. So that's always a little bit of a tell. And so I sandblasted that. I put three new 1350 series splicer snap tights in there. That's what Toyota built that with. The U-joints that were in it were the Auto Parts El Cheapo looking ones. They were arid. A couple of the trunnions had started to cut in. I was not, I want to fix this thing, so we're not messing around with junk, basically. The slip yoke had been off. It was dry. I mean, like arid. There was rust coming out of it. Although the glide coat was good and the slip yoke was good, I cleaned that all out, and as you can see now, it has a grease fitting in it, and it will have a proper boot clamp, which was not there when it arrived. So I'm going to put a boot clamp on it before it leaves, before I paint it. So, long story short, there's 6 component pieces here if you don't count the U-joints themselves. I can't prove it, but I strongly suspect that the index of the slip yoke was changed from the way it was built at the factory. It was 180 degrees opposite, and that yoke there is the yoke you unbolt to take the center bearing off. And I also believe that was in 180 degrees opposite. So I put it back together the way it was with new U-joints, the way it arrived, the index that they had. It was better, but it was still not good. And so I stepped up the performance by I spun that 180 degrees, keeping in mind you got to press things apart to do that. And that made it better, but it still just, it had a really bad harmonics at the speed that it's going now. In my estimation, it would be undrivable for the customer. I would not send it back out that way. So I took it back apart, indexed that around, and I indexed this yoke around 180 degrees also from the way it had been previously installed, and that helped the performance out quite a bit. Again, another step in the right direction to get it to the point where it is now, that balancing was sensible, not a weight farm, and the balance package is manageable. So that's all a win. Is just when somebody meaning well takes one of these multi-piece drive shafts apart and scrambles all the pieces and don't put them back together in the order that they were used to running, it makes problems. And if the components are all new and hadn't been torqued on and everything like that, like when you build a new drive shaft out of all these pieces, that's when you assign them a position, and that's the way they should stay. And unfortunately, this isn't my first rodeo with these things, and I could see it coming with this one, just the way it was acting, and sure enough, that's pretty much the way it played out. So, having said all that, That's cranking 3,000 RPM. 0 at the transfer case, nobody home. Same thing in the center bearing. And as what always happens, all of the action was at the center bearing. And that leads me to believe that's what was going on before, and that's what tore that rubber apart. So that's that. Center bearing's good. Transmission end's good. Rear axle end, dead flat, 0. So we're going to say that this is a win for that. That's going to get a boot clamp. It's already got a grease fitting. I put good red grease in there when I reassembled it. So that grease fitting there is for some maintenance. Once in a while, like every couple of oil changes, put a couple of pumps of grease. Do not put a tube of grease in that thing. It just is for maintenance. It was literally rust falling out of it. So a little lubrication will go a long ways to preserve this thing. I'm going to touch up the paint on it, and we're going to get it back to precision.